fellow Nuez De La India users or potential users, or maybe people accident or just interested in the title of the video. I thought a lot whether to make this video or not. I wasn't sure I was going to do it, but in the end I thought it might be good for someone to just, who actually uses the nut, who knows the nuts, to just openly and transparently talk about my own experiences and the research I've done around the nuts. So I made a video a couple of months ago about using the nut, how to use it, how to prepare it when you are using the nut for weight loss purposes. And in the interim, the past month or so, I've been receiving a lot of and communications from people sharing concerns around the safety and toxicity, possible toxicity of the Nuez De La India nuts. I also realized that whereas I had done a lot of research and homework for myself when I started using the nuts and first experienced detox, there are a lot of people using the nuts who don't do the research, who don't actually know what they're putting inside of their bodies, so that when they come across or someone shares a media article or a conversation between two people about the nuts or anything of the sort, there's sort of a mini hysteria that develops. So just to sort of put the information out there as someone who admittedly has been using the nut for 2.5 years and who went on Google and did the research just for myself, I thought I'd like to open this discussion with you guys around the nuts and share what I've learned about it, and maybe just allay some of the hype or fears around use of the nuts and what is in it and what have you. So the first thing is, I think for myself, I remember when I started using the nuts and experienced the terrible detox symptoms. For me, it was quite terrible. Typical detox of the headaches and the sore muscles and the sore body and the tiredness and a bit of nausea. I straight away stopped and jumped onto the internet, and I actually told my husband, it doesn't help, I'm thin, but poisoning myself. But at the same time, it's something that actually gave me pause, is the fact that I was so in the grip of this weight issue, of feeling fat and uncomfortable in my own skin and feeling so condemned whenever I walked into a room about my weight, that it was almost something I had to think about for a second, thin versus sick. And that's not something that should ever be on the table. It's not something that you should ever choose between being thin or being sick. Your health is always of paramount importance. So I want to begin this video off by saying, whatever else, nothing can replace good health and your own peace, sense of peace. So if you're ever uncomfortable about anything, if your body is ever telling you to stop and you're not sure, or you stop, rather stop. Health is just not something you can put a price on. So yeah, that's what I want to begin this video with. So I did some research about the nuts, and what I found out allayed all my fears and made me quite comfortable to continue using the nut, as I have been doing for the past 2.5 years, admittedly. But again, this is something that every person needs to decide for themselves, and you need to do the research and be responsible about this and not depend or rely on me or anybody else. So what I found about the nut, the scientific name, Aleurites malucanus, I don't know, Latin, South African accent does not go well, or candle nut, Indian walnut, Nuez De La India is what we call it. This nut is often used, cooked in Indonesian and Malaysian cuisine, where it has various different names, Kimmery, Bukaras, sorry, for all Malaysians out there, and also used to make a thick sauce, eaten with vegetables and rice. Now, the reason that they consume this nut is they consume it in its cooked form. So what a lot of sites out there and distributors of the nuts are not telling people, which I think is wrong. I don't think we should be shying away from truth in any way, shape or form. I think people can make their own decisions having all the information, as I did. But anyway, So what a lot of these sites who are selling and pushing the nut are shying away from actually just being honest about is the fact that there are trace amounts of a toxin in this nut, according to the research I found and the different websites, Wikipedia, I'll admit, amongst one of them, about the nuts. So the seeds do contain saponin and phorbol, and saponin and phorbol are apparently toxic substances that are known to be toxic for human consumption. So the important thing for me was the fact that there are only trace amounts of these toxins in the nut. And then the second, but the most vital piece of information for me as well was the fact that these toxins are actually broken down when the nut is cooked. So when the nut is consumed in its raw form, that's when it's toxic and it has these toxins in. But these toxins are actually broken down into their smaller components when the nut, during the process of cooking the nut. So you will see that everyone, even in my previous video, I was talking about it, that you should be adding boiling water, just boiled water from the kettle, and letting the nut stand in that boiling water. Some distributors or sites would even tell you to cook the nut in the microwave for a while before consuming it. So this all has to do with the fact that you should not be consuming the nut raw. But see, they don't tell you about the toxins. So then someone's taking the nuts, and whether they're experiencing weight loss or not, suddenly someone tells them, this nut you're taking is poisonous, it's toxic, and then people completely freak out. So this is me telling you what I found about the nuts and the toxicity thereof. And then, as we know, it's got a high oil content, sometimes used to make candles. And then the most important, it has a laxative effect. So we've seen what a quarter to an eighth, those of us who've been using it, I've seen what a quarter to an eighth of a nut can do. So imagine taking a whole nut, or even 3 or 4 whole nuts. So you will read of people who've actually been hospitalized, possibly even dying because of taking whole nuts, which I can completely believe, just having experienced the effects of a small piece of nut on my body. So it does have laxative properties, which means that your body is losing nutrients and losing electrolytes, one of these being potassium, which makes you very tired. Potassium is electrolyte apparently that especially your body and your heart needs to function properly. So what I've actually done is I went to my local pharmacy and I asked them to give me a supplement that has potassium, magnesium, and calcium in it, which I take daily, and I found that is more than sufficient for me to use together with the nuts. But again, you have to be responsible. You have to do the homework and make sure, and you have to listen to your body and make sure that you get whatever you lose through that process. So that's quite important to take note of. Trying to think what else. The quarter is what we spoke about. Then, in terms of the nut, or I'm not sure whether it's the toxin in the nut or some other ingredient in the nut that apparently falls under the category of being carcinogenic. Sorry. So no medical background, take it from where it comes, someone who Googled and just did some research and just sharing that with you. So carcinogens are classified according to different groups. You get different types of carcinogens. Sorry, just trying to get my notes here that I wrote down. So what I found about carcinogens, what I found out, which was quite interesting, is anything that can change the structure of your DNA apparently is a carcinogen, because in the process of changing the structure of your cells, that can actually lead to the formation of tumor cells or cancerous cells, or your cells changing. So this can happen because of your cells dividing faster than normal, being exposed to certain substances, consuming certain substances. Anything that can change your DNA structure is labeled as a carcinogen and can lead to cancerous growth. So this is me, layperson, just what I understood from what I read about it. So carcinogens don't always cause cancer in all cases. These have just been identified as possibly having an effect on altering your cells, your DNA and your cells. So you get alcohol as a carcinogen, apparently alcohol consumption, wood dust, smoking we all know about. Chimney sweeper should apparently beware because of coal dust. Coal is a carcinogen if you're making coal inside your house. fire using coal. Sunbeds we know because of skin, the possibility of skin cancer. Painters that are exposed to benzene often, apparently benzene can be diesel fumes, salted fish, shellfish, processed meat, eating hot dogs, bacon we've heard, ham we've heard. Eggs, apparently due to the antibiotics they give the hens for growth, I'm not sure. So these are carcinogens. So something that I've read is the fact that something in the nut, I'm not sure, I'm thinking, I don't remember, it's one of the toxins, but yeah, something in the nut has been labeled as a carcinogen, and when people hear carcinogen, they think cancer. I've nowhere found studies or articles linking the nuts to cancer. What I found is people being hospitalized due to dehydration, taking too many nuts. And look, it's the same with if your doctor prescribes aspirin or any other medicine to you. There are regulations around how much you should take, when you should take it, and exactly the same with the nuts. So when your agents or distributors tell you to take it before you go to sleep, never take more than a quarter, always take it within boiling water, haven't boiled it or cooked it first. They tell you this for a reason. The problem is they often don't themselves know what the reasons are, and I think there's really an issue with transparency from the side of the people distributing the nut. So I found I put all the information around the nuts together for myself. From basically, I found two main streams of sources. The one was websites and sites of people pushing the nut, having a very pro-nut agenda, like I said, glossing over any of the negative effects. And the others were websites sort of dedicated to just scaring people on the one hand, because you could see they were actually competitive products, so that advertiser pushed for something else on the website itself, so it's clear that it's a competitive product. But some of them are really just people wanting to just stand up against this diet and weight loss industry that is sort of out to take something that's so sensitive to people, and that people are so desperate to change in their lives, and just making a buck off it at the expense of people's vulnerability and desperation and health, essentially. So in South Africa, the nuts haven't been tested by our medical council here. The general advice you'll get is, look, there's toxins in, people have been sick, so just steer clear. And which is, I don't criticize at all personally. I can completely see the reasoning behind that. Another thing I find is a lot of people saying, well, there aren't clear scientifically endorsed studies showing that the nuts actually do what they say they'll do. For that, I can only speak from my own experience, as well as the other ladies who've bought the nuts from me and been using it over the past 2 years. We've all had fantastic results. The nuts have actually totally done what those websites tell you it will do in terms of weight loss, health benefits, the oils. So I've experienced all of that, and that's all I can speak to. I can only speak from my own. So then they point you to the placebo effect. Well, goodness me, the placebo effect, if it was a placebo effect, then I'm sure between the Herbalife and the Garcinia Cambodia and the laser lipo I did and the HCG drops, I mean, you name it, I tried it. Some of that should have worked if it was the placebo effect. None of it worked. The point is the nut acts as a laxative. It's pretty much what it boils down to, and it definitely reduced my appetite. And no one can tell me otherwise. And I've seen it work with too many other women. Yeah, so but I get that there aren't actual medically, scientifically endorsed studies behind this, and I also get why. I don't think there's enough money for anyone in it to really pursue it. But if anyone out there would like to, that would be awesome. But yeah, so the placebo effect is called upon, and then the fact that, look, if it's toxic, rather just stay away, which again I get. So that's why I say do your research. Make sure you know what you're putting into your body. That's the responsible adult thing to do. And don't do something or use something because someone tells you or recommends it without knowing what you're taking. It's just not smart, people. So yeah, this has been my 2 cents about the nuts. You're welcome to leave your comments. As always, ask questions. Again, I have no medical background. This is not me speaking as an expert in any way, shape, or form, so please take it from who it's coming from. But yeah, I just thought I just, for myself personally, feel like there's really a lack of complete open transparency and people just talking about, because either people are trying to sell it and then they're shying away from anything that might make it sound negative, which I think is stupid. But anyway, but I get why people are like that, capitalism and all of that. And then on the other hand, you just have people just scaring other people. So you get those two sides, but I haven't really heard a reasonable, measured conversation about this anywhere. So I'm hoping this would be one, but I'm pretty sure there'll be lots of strong emotions evoked and I will be criticized, to no end. But again, my opinion, bring it on. I'm okay with it. I'm putting it out there, so I have to be. But yeah, so thanks for listening, and be responsible. Truth is powerful, and there's really not enough truth out there. Just a lot of conjecture, a lot of opinion, but not enough truth. So let's be truth seekers. Have a blessed day, and thanks for listening.